A very warm welcome to everyone joining us this evening for a conversation with Eastfall-born singer-songwriter Paul O'Brien.
Welcome, everybody. I was born and raised in Eastfall, for those of you that don't know me, but I've been living in the Netherlands for the last 40 years, together with my Dutch wife and Irish-Dutch children.
Yeah, I'm Pauline O'Brien, same name, and from Dublin, and have been living in the Netherlands for over 30 years myself, with my Dutch husband and Dutch-Irish kids. I met Paul some 33 years ago in an Irish bar, and he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from Finglas." And "Can you sing?" I said, "I can." He said, "Well, come on and do a few songs with me here in this Irish bar." So one thing led to another. We started to play Irish bars around the Netherlands. We did many festivals around Europe. And 15 years ago, he came up with this great idea that he wanted to write this amazing song for his parents. And Paul, what happened then?
What happened then? Well, I started rooting around old photographs and listening to old stories, trying to get one song together, but it just grew and grew. And we ended up creating a project together called Songs from North Lots. That turned out to be a book and a double CD of 40 songs.
Yeah, I think the whole project, one might ask, why would you do something like that? And I think there's one thing to showcase your talent, Paul, but the other thing is for us to stay connected with home and to have our kids know where their roots come from. I think that's kind of why we do this, isn't it?
Well, that's been very important for me.
Yeah, exactly. So tonight we're going to share this journey with you and bring you along the songs that Paul has written throughout the port-to-port visits we've done, and we'll explain that as we go on this evening. But for now, we'll say sit back, relax, maybe get a drink or two, and enjoy this first song from the Songs from the North Lots, and we'll chat about that later on.
Short trousers in the winter, your school bag on your back, walking home from Larry's along the railway track, or hanging round a slaughterhouse to chase the sheep that strayed, or down to Fairview Park, play football all the day. All the day, down by Bargee, and whistling all the way.
The first clip was the song Eastfall All the Day, and it was the first song in a cycle of songs I wrote about growing up in Eastfall and in Dublin in the 60s. I'd been looking for material for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary and came across these films made by my Uncle Noel and a friend of his in the 50s and 60s. Oh, this is fantastic. These were 8mm films of weddings and parties, but also of children playing outside my grandmother's house on the Caledon Road.
Precious.
Absolutely. And my grandmother playing in the back garden with the dog, and my cousins. And I was transported back there straight away, because I'd played with that hobby horse outside the house. I'd played in the back garden, played like that with my grandmother. It's fantastic. It's a real treasure to have these films in the family.
Yeah, and I think you captured it in the song, exactly as you're explaining to us here. You can feel that coming through, that you were transported back to your youth. Excellent. So Paul, one of the next songs we actually want to look at is the Hoolies. Now, in our house, we had loads of Hoolies. My mum's came from a really large family, the eldest of a large family, and my dad the same. And there was a whole lot of singing going on in our house when we were young. But we didn't have any musical instruments. And were you posh in your house, you know, that you had musical instruments? Tell me about how you started playing the guitar and how that all came about.
Oh, we were terribly posh. We're from the West Road. No, but an uncle of mine played the melodeon, and like yourself, most people would have been just singing, but my uncles were very good at accompanying them when they were singing, and it always gave a bit of a lift to it. But I really loved the Hoolies, and I really wanted to join in, and I wasn't so good at the unaccompanied singing or telling a story like my Uncle Noel would do. So I thought, now a way of being able to jump in there will be to learn to play the guitar, because in the 60s, you wouldn't remember that, Pauline, but in the 60s it was quite a thing. Everybody was going out learning how to play the guitar. But it got me into the Hoolies.
And I guess you were the person who everybody wanted to sing with, because you could accompany them.
I know, that would have been my cousin Liam, because he was better than me.
Excellent. So listen, will we have a listen and share the Hoolies with everybody here this evening?
Yeah, please do.
We'd lay out the food in the kitchen with the bottles of red lemonade, large ones of stout and the mixers, the ham and cheese sambos we'd made. They'd be chatting about the next wedding and the owl one that lives down the street, and the prices they're charging in bulges, and the size of me Auntie Anne's feet. I remember we used to have Hoolies in the sitting room long, long ago, when Shamey would play his melodeon and Connie would sway to and fro. I remember the time when a party was a six-pack and a packet of crisps, and if you were pushing the boat out, you'd send someone to Chetty's for chips. And some would always come early to make sure they got a good chair. And we would pretend to be sleeping and watching it all from the stairs. I remember we used to have Hoolies in the sitting room long, long ago, when Shamey would play his melodeon and Connie would sway to and fro, and Ollie would sing us his frog song, and Annie would flash out the gin, and someone would ask for an oldie like Twilight or Begin to Begin. Plenty of songs but no dancing. Should have wasn't the room on the floor, and I'd be sent out to get biscuits from Maureen's wee shop next door. I remember we used to have Hoolies in the sitting room long, long ago, when Shamey would play his melodeon and Connie would sway to and fro.
Feel like having a Hoolie now, Paul, myself, actually. One of my favourites, I have to say, really great song, enjoyed that. Now, the advantage of hosting this evening is that I get to kind of choose what gets played, and I'm very happy about that. And so while I love all your songs, I have a few particular favourites. The next one is Montgomery Street, which really resonated with me all those years ago and still does. Would you mind telling us about how you came to write that song, Paul?
This story came to me from an old lady who talked about her childhood as the daughter of a prostitute, and she was brought up in Montgomery Street with many mothers, as she said, and she spoke about having a happy childhood, and how she one of her fondest memories as a child was of the girls singing early in the morning, and I was completely blown by this. This is a completely different way of looking at Montgomery Street, the red light district of Dublin, than I'd ever imagined. And I tried to put that into the human side of that story into a song. Her father had been killed during the First World War, and her mother had turned to prostitution.
Yeah, and I think you wrote this song. You maintained her dignity. This was a woman who was doing what she needed to do to look after her family and to take responsibility, because clearly her husband or partner had been killed, and she had to do what she had to do. So I think you really maintain dignity, and let's have a listen. And maybe folks who've joined us can write in the chat what they think about the song, and what they're getting from it as they listen. Let's give it a go.
It's late, the pubs are closing, the streets are full of life. Married men about the town without their wife, groping in their pockets for money for the girls, longing for the comfort, longing for the curls. Later on, when the men have come and gone, she straightens out the sheets. Later on, the ghosts, they sing their song, and the tears run down Montgomery Street. Mary keeps a picture of her fallen fusilier, glad to be alone at last, wishing he was here. The way he used to hold her, like he'd never let her go. Sometimes it's like yesterday, sometimes years ago. Later on, wrapped in his coat to keep her warm, her night dress at her feet. Later on, she tells herself, be strong, and looks down Montgomery Street. Softly from the windows, half open to the night, some girls are singing just before the light. The coins have all been counted and are safe in Madam's purse, and the jarvies pick up stragglers and softly curse. Later on, when the banshees come and gone, are tapping on the railings as he passes. Later on, the ghosts, they move along. Mary falls asleep at last. listen to the carriages and the talk as strangers meet. And I listen to the tears run down Montgomery Street.
Yeah, it's a really powerful song, isn't it, Paul? Love it. Thanks for that. I guess we're going to switch gears a little here as we think about what came after the North Lots in Dublin then.
Yeah, after we presented the North Lots in Dublin, we presented it here in The Hague, in the Netherlands, and we went on to, we played quite a few gigs here on the continent with it. And we were both overwhelmed by the fact that not only did people enjoy the music, which I was hoping for in the first place, but they were coming to us with their songs, especially people from Rotterdam or from Capelle on the IJssel, people who had links with the docks as well. And we thought, oh, like these stories are just as interesting, or just as full of life as the Eastfall was, and maybe we can do something with that.
Yeah, people were eager to share their stories, weren't they? And especially when they'd seen what you could do with a story and how you turned that into songs, some really humorous and some, tear-jerking songs, So I remember then thinking and saying to Paul, like, should we not be going port to port, looking at what's going on in other ports? And you said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And so we headed to Belfast, I think, as the first port, right?
Yeah. Well, there are concrete links between Eastfall and Belfast, and between the Dockers Club in Dublin and the Dockers Club in Belfast. So it was easy to get in contact with them, although they wanted to meet us, and they really wanted to know what we were about.
Yeah, I think their stories are precious to them, Paul, and they weren't just going to share them with two folks who live in the Netherlands from Dublin, right? So I get that. So they kind of needed to do a bit of a screening of us first, didn't they? And they did, and they were extremely gracious and welcoming to us. And I think, that one Sunday morning that we walked around the Docklands area, talk us through that.
Yeah, we had a meeting with these gentlemen from the Dockers Club in their clubhouse, which is on the docks. It's really on the quays. It's where very close to where they used to stand and queue for work, as they did in Dublin on the quays for casual labour. And their chairman, Lee McBrien, brought us for a walk around the area, and he showed us the exact spot where he had stood as a 15-year-old boy on his first day at work there, basically begging for work.
Yeah.
And you're standing there on this cold, drizzly corner, and you can see the gantries of Harland and Wolff in the distance looking down on you. And they've even renamed that spot Dockers Corner now as well. So the song was born.
He such a dignified man who told the story with grace and eloquence, and really transported us back there. Like I could really, I'm a visual learner, and I could really kind of visualize what you were saying as we walked around. And then on the flight back to the Netherlands, Paul, you didn't speak a word to me. Why was that?
I've been talking to you all weekend. I just no, I was so moved by what he and how he said he had completely brought it to life. And I think the weather helped a little bit, just this cold, drizzly morning. Yeah. And I could really see it in front of me. So I was very much in my own little world. If I'm writing a song, I do go back into my own little world. But
so don't give any more away. Let's have a listen so that everyone can enjoy, and we can transport everybody back to that Sunday morning.
"15 years of age when he lines up with the men, They look at him and know he'll never be a boy again. He's hoping to get picked to earn a docker's pay. In this town you grow up fast or get left along the way. 4 men cross the yard to bless the lucky few. Some they call by Christian names, to some they just say you. And the men with tokens leaving gangs and march along the quay. The man without just say a prayer for work tomorrow, please. And it's cold and the drizzle's coming down. Early morning, sailor town.
That song, Docker's Corner, was the beginning of a CD of songs about the links between Dublin and Belfast, and it led to us performing quite a bit in Belfast and performing at the Fela Festival and doing walking tours in Belfast with the Dockers along the quays, very much the same as we'd done walking tours in Dublin.
Yeah, we became friends for life, didn't we, really? Once we were in, we were in. They were just very honoured that you would, you know, write such powerful material for them to honour their lives, basically, right?
Yeah, we've been back many times to Belfast. We've built up a great link with them, as well as building up a link between them and the Dockers Preservation Society in Dublin. Yeah. Going back and forward and visiting each other's exhibitions since then.
Yeah.
We've played at their Remembrance Day celebrations as well. Yeah.
Powerful. And then from that, Paul, I remember somebody heard Docker's Corner in the UK, and I can't quite remember how they heard it, but the next thing you were in conversations with someone in Portsmouth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this chap, Tom in Portsmouth, he's from Dublin, he's from the Liberties originally. He heard Docker's Corner on YouTube, I think, and he contacted us and said that there was a vibrant Irish community in Portsmouth, and if we'd be interested in going there to play our songs and maybe collect even some of their stories, which were different. These we had gone with the idea of going to get Dockland stories, but we got more sailor stories in Portsmouth because there were a lot of Irish signed up for the British Navy, and we got lots of their stories. Another aspect of
I think as well, Paul, what was key there was the sense of community. You talked about that earlier, you know, Eastfall being a community in itself, you know, those areas. I think that was what was poignant from Portsmouth, the Irish community there, a little like the Irish community here in the Netherlands. Like it's very close-knit, isn't it? And it's a home away from home, and people find comfort together to socialize and stuff. Yeah. Now, you wrote a very powerful song, probably the only real love song you've written as far as I'm concerned, and I'll let you talk more about that in a minute. But I also would like to highlight that you played alongside somebody else while you were in Portsmouth. Maybe you talk about that.
Oh yeah, the Tom introduced us to a chap, Armstrong, who had played in Van Morrison's band for years. And he's from Belfast himself, and he runs a bed and breakfast and a pub near Portsmouth. So it was great to jam in with him for
it was an amazing evening, and then you played Ships to Sail, and there were many tears that night. Tell us about Ships to Sail, Paul.
Well, this chap Tom had been at sea for 40 years, but he'd also been married for 40 years, and his wife had put up with him being at sea for 40 years. And his wife, Rose, she was originally from a place in Scotland called Oban, which I think must be one of the most beautiful places in the world. And she left all that to be beside her, to stand by her man. Yeah. So I thought, now I think Rose deserves a song after all that.
Yeah.
Because Tom was quite a character.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom's quite a character, and Rose is a saint. So let's have a listen.
when I hold my love, there's nothing comes between. When he dons his jacket blue, he's the finest lad you've seen. But something stirs him deep inside and pulls his heart from me. For my love, he's a sailor, and sailors love the sea. My love, he's a sailor, and sailors love the sea. When we walk by open shore and up to Pulpit Hill, he holds me close beside him to shelter me from chills. But billowed sails and capstans, they call his heart from me. For my love, he's a sailor, and sailors love the sea. My love, he's a sailor, and sailors love the sea. Sometimes I pretend that I'm the only one, and I only have to flash my eyes, and to me he will come. But as long as there are ships to sail, my love will part from me. For my love, he's a sailor, and sailors love the sea. My love, he's a sailor, and sailors love the sea.
I bet there's not a dry eye in the house after that, Paul.
Probably not, no.
Yeah. So listen, I've been requesting my favourite songs and pulled a few out, but let's look at the bigger picture here. So if you were to think about your favourite songs, Paul, or those that you really enjoyed writing, would that transport you to our next song that we'd like to share?
Oh, I have so many favourites. But the most requested song here on the continent at gigs is the next one, Before the War.
Oh yeah.
On the quayside in Rotterdam, there's a quiet spot with a memorial to the Jews and the Gypsies who were transported from that spot to concentration camps and extermination camps in the East during the Second World War. It's a very simple monument. It's actually just an old wall, the old wall of the warehouse where people had been gathered, and with a plaque on it. And in front of the plaque, there is a semicircle in metal with the names of the children who have been transported from there. I stood there a lot trying to think, how can I capture this atmosphere? How can I capture this story in a song? And this song came to me then.
Yeah, I think what really, not only are you capturing the moment, but the style of music suddenly changes. We're actually getting to see your musicality like we've never seen it before in this song in particular. I think, it really shows the different styles you've studied over the years. And I think this is powerful because it really just, as I said, shows your musicality. Shall we have a listen?
Yeah, okay.
We used to skip before the war. We used to sing before the war. and we could dance, we could believe. There was no star stitched to our sleeve.
Our next port of call from port to port was a trip to Glasgow. We were invited to visit the Fairfield shipping offices there. Now, there are very old links between Fairfield and Eastfall. My parents were living on Fairfield Avenue in Eastfall when I was born, and it was called Fairfield Avenue because there is a row of houses there built for shipbuilders who originally came from Glasgow to work and set up the Liffey shipyard.
Yeah.
Those buildings are unique. You don't see them anywhere else in Ireland. They're known in Eastfall as the Scotch buildings or the Scotch block.
Yeah.
So we got a chance to go and see the offices which were being done up to.
It was a complete renovation, wasn't there, to turn it into a history museum of the area of the celebrating the ship works, right? The shipping industry there. Yeah.
Yep.
And they were building offices on top as well to rent out to other folks, wasn't it? So it was an absolute building site when we walked around.
It was a hard hat area. It was.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great to visit it because this is the shipyard that Sean Connery worked in as an apprentice. He even made a short film about it years ago.
Yeah.
Called it Bunnets and Bowler Hats.
Yeah.
Great little film. So,
what I remember as well is walking around the building site and thinking as we walked into the boardroom, Paul, and they were talking about how they were going to renovate it back to its original style, and I was thinking, wow, wouldn't it be just amazing if you could actually play there? And we were in the middle of dust and building and horrible, and you're like, play here, and I was like, yeah, it'd be great if you could play here. Some years later, what happened?
Well, some years later we did actually get to play there. We played at the Govan Festival week, and it was fantastic.
And the acoustics were actually done really, really well, and really wonderful sound. And it was great because at that stage, Paul, you'd managed to write a song as well for the area, kind of that reflects, right, what the project we were doing. And that came about because we did some research into your own family history.
Yeah, there's quite a few links between that part of Glasgow, Govan, and my own family. I had quite a few aunts, or great aunts, who went to live there or came back from living there at the turn of the last century. And I thought I was going to I wanted to find out why they moved there. And one of the first things a person from the history group there said to me was, "Oh, you've seen it all wrong. They didn't move to here. They came from here." And when I looked into it, on my mother's side, the Carricks, they actually came from Glasgow, and some of them moved back to Glasgow at the turn of the last century because there was no work in Dublin. And my grandfather worked on the cattle boats that went from Dublin to Glasgow, and he used to visit his relations there as well. So my mother had fond memories of when her father would come back from Glasgow. He would have sugar and sweets and tea from Glasgow. So I was looking into my own family history, but the song that we're going to play is more linked to Eastfall than that, because the school teacher in around 1920, 1930 in the Wharf School, the Eastfall Road School, was John D. Sheridan, the writer. And he wrote a book called Paradise Alley. And basically the book is about the school, the people in the school, the headmaster, the parish priest, everybody. You can recognize everybody in the book, only he changed all the names.
Yeah.
And he called the Wharf School Paradise Alley. It's a wonderful book, and it has been republished with help of the Eastfall History Group. So there was a fantastic feat for the history group to get that republished. But John D. Sheridan himself was from Glasgow. And when we were walking around that area of Glasgow in Govan, we came across the junior school there, the infant school. And that's on a street called Harmony Row. And there's no self-respecting songwriter could miss a chance like this. That people were, these people from Glasgow had left Govan to come and work in Dublin at the turn of the century. So they went to Paradise Alley from Harmony Row.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's such a genius title. Actually, the ITV Scotland were interested in it as well, and you managed to get on ITV TV to play it, right, as well.
On Scottish National TV.
There you go. All right, let's have a listen.
But I would like to say that this song has, it's basically, it of course is about Glasgow and Dublin, but in the wider sense, it's about immigration. Why do people immigrate? Why would anybody want to emigrate, uproot his family, sometimes with their children, and go live somewhere else? As a lot of the Scots people did from Glasgow to move to Dublin at the turn of the last century, and as so many Irish people have done and still do over the years. Like us. Or Polish people moving to Dublin as well.
Yeah.
It's
migration, yeah.
All
right. Paradise Alley to Harmony Row.
It's still on the quayside, the last ship has gone, with no work in the stockyards, no work for a man. We'll pack our belongings and we're ready to go to Paradise Alley from Harmony Row. Farewell to Glasgow, farewell to the Clyde. I can take on the world, love, with you by my side. So come along, Rachel, and the fruitin' we'll go to Paradise Alley from Harmony Row.
So we've been on quite a trip down memory lane, and hope we've brought you on our journey so far. It's been absolutely a pleasure to do so. As you can see, our interest in social history is high on our agendas, and we know there are many more ports that we'd love to visit in time when we're allowed to do so again. We know there's plenty more stories to be heard, and lots that we really need to preserve. In the meantime, Paul, I think you're working on something else that might be of interest to folks that are logged on. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. I've been working for the last year and a half or so on work by Joe O'Grady. Joe O'Grady was an Eastfaller who wrote poems and songs about actual news items and about people in the area. And he was doing that from the 20s up to 1960 when he died. And he left a whole legacy of songs without music. Mm-hmm. He wrote these poems, and most of them he wrote, this is to be sung to the air of, and he suggested a melody to sing them to. But I've been working on these songs, there's over 30 of them, to put original music to them. And we hope to highlight his work next year, with a book and a CD. In the meantime, I worked forward on he wrote one song about the Bloody Sunday Massacre 100 years ago, and that's available on YouTube now. But it has also been played on the radio in New York. So sometimes it can go very fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's probably good to mention before we go over to the chat and kind of look at what people have been saying and answer any questions there are. Worth saying, for those who'd like to listen to more of Paul's music, all of the collections are actually up on Spotify, and the songs that were featured here this evening are on YouTube or Spotify or something you're doing with it, Paul. Can't remember.
Yeah, now there's a playlist of the Eastfall History Week 2020 on YouTube with the videos, and
Oh,
the
yes.
song. I've put the songs on a new CD. I re-recorded these songs especially for the occasion, and that CD is available on Spotify as well. Paul O'Brien, Eastfall History Week 2020.
Right. So let's hear from you. Let's have a chat. Let's see. Also, if there are any requests for Paul to play something just now, we'd love to hear that.